Did you put a mic on me? Man, you're sneaky. Episode like 20 something. If we made it this far, I think most podcasts fail after 21 episodes statistically. So this isn't a podcast, but we're going to surpass that, meaning we've got a 95% success rate. We also just hit over 50,000 subscribers on our YouTube channel, climbing quite quickly. We have averaged 1,700 subscribers per 28 days, and that's significantly higher than usual. I think the shorts, some things like that are really the reason for it, but also being consistent. Design Time has really helped with that, and obviously you guys watching it. I'm going to show you something that I've been working on. First, I'm going to show you something that's cool. One thing that we're trying to do is determine how we can easily extend an OEM control arm on a 370Z without needing to fabricate an entire arm. Now, we do want to still fabricate an entire arm, but there is a lot that is good about the OEM 370 arm. It's a giant forged aluminum piece that's really strong, really light, and you hate to throw it away. Especially for racing. For drifting, we don't need it because we have to increase clearance, but for road racing, it's actually the perfect arm. It's very stiff, it's very strong. So we came up with this idea where I'm gonna have 3D printed guides. We're gonna put them onto the subframe, and it's gonna give you a new hole 15 millimeters ahead. And I think I'll actually do these out of some billet aluminum, because we might clamp them in place just because there isn't much material left from the two holes. But essentially, if we're able to move the arm 15 millimeters outward, we can also use the OEM caster block, which is this piece here. And if we build this section, this is a welded together piece, we bolt it through, drill and bolt, and then we have another hole here 15 millimeters away. You would simply use this as a jig and run your drill bit through and clear out some of this aluminum. And then on the bottom side, you would probably use the subframe as a guide hole, and you would drill a new hole and you'd thread this hole right in the bottom. This is a nice big chunk of aluminum that Nissan gives you on the arm. You can repurpose the caster block and move the entire control arm outward 15 millimeters. This is essentially what you need to get the track width, the clearance, and everything that you need to run really large tires. And I tell you, it took a while to arrive at this place because we went over all kinds of options. We actually had at one point the concept of literally cutting all of the ends off of these OEM arms, because the other thing is these OEM arms are really strong and they're also really cheap. Like, you can get these for like $140 brand new ball joints, new bushings. You can't produce something of the same quality anywhere near the price. So if you can get the job done with the OEM arms, it's your best bet. They're gonna hold up to basically everything. We even repurposed these and used them for rally, and they're so light and so strong, you just have to try to use them. So we also made a bearing kit. So if you're able to move the control arms outward and replace the bushings with uniballs, you've now successfully created a bearing-mounted, race-ready control arm from the OEM one, and making it easy to adapt is key. So this is something that we're just going to try on our ice drift car. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't matter. That's the great thing. And we also have 6 sets of these arms just chilling. So we're going to give it a shot. It's something that's easy for us to try. Normally we would do these things in complete silence, but since you guys are part of the premium list of people that decide to watch Design Time, you get the good intel. The next thing, this would be for our fabricated control arms, because although it's nice to repurpose OEM arms, there's always that group that just wants a better, improved fabricated replacement. And for that, I've created this, and we may go forward with this, we may not. These are all just ideas and concepts that really don't live or exist for months, maybe even years. But I basically was racking my brain around this idea for a long time. This is the caster block, but with a uniball bearing, our own bearing. This would be a billet piece with adjustment. So that's the thing. If you do this to the OEM control arm, you have no adjustment. You've relocated everything by 15 mil and that's it. That's all you can do. This would incorporate adjustment. And I was really racking my brain, how do you get up to like 20, 25, maybe even 30 millimeters of adjustment? There's no threaded thing, there's no shims, there's nothing that's actually gonna meet that range and requirement, because between drifting and racing, there's so much variance with how much it can be adjusted. So I came up with this. This is a flippable block. So essentially, we can get 11 millimeters of adjustment in and out in this position. And because I made it identical and mirrored, we can flip it. And so now we have another 11 millimeters of adjustment, but at a further outboard location. So if I overlay the other one, we have two positions. Both are possible with the same part, with plus or minus 11 mil in each position, giving you an overall min to max, like 34 millimeters of overall adjustment using the same piece. So this is something that really is game changer, again, because it's not using shims or parts, it's not using heim joints or jam nuts, it's using OEM location, OEM position, billet piece, simple. Keeping it simple is key, keeping it strong is key. And simply to lock it in, you're gonna clamp down on these slots with just longer bolts. You wouldn't use the factory bolts, you would need to have longer bolts, we'll provide those. And then essentially a set screw and a jam nut will go on either end. So after you've locked down your position, you tighten in the set screws, tighten the jam nuts, and those are gonna be just the stop, the thing that prevents it from sliding. Although the clamping pressure of two M12 bolts likely would hold it anyways, those set screws running into those bolts, the shank of it is gonna just finalize and not allow anything to move at all. So that's gonna be really cool if we take this anywhere. You know, I still need to make a control arm that uses this. We don't currently have that. That's just something that I've been working on kind of in the background and seeing what comes to mind. And this is also a very refined version of the original concept. The original concept, because you don't have a picture of what it is that you're making, you just have to keep making iterations of it until you arrive at something like this. So the original one that I made was much larger. I wish I could show you all those steps, but the problem that comes with stuff like this and also sharing it is that someone will see the finalized concept and design and then immediately mimic it. But we're in today's world where AI is more powerful than anything. Pictures are everywhere, and in order to sell a product, you do have to photograph it. So like, if someone's gonna rip it off now or later, they're gonna do it regardless. So that's the unfortunate part of things, but they don't have the name, the brand, and then the everybody behind it. So that's something they'll never be able to mimic. That's why I don't lose too much sleep over it, but it is annoying, and it is happening more and more often. So I guess if you're watching this and you are one of those guys, you could stop. You could turn your Wi-Fi off and just try to make it yourself. The last thing is going to be the E80, E90, or basically every BMW rear knuckle generally uses the same geometry on the knuckle itself. Even the G series, the F series, they all use the same locations on the knuckle. The knuckles have gotten significantly better over time and lighter, and they're aluminum now when they used to be steel. But we're essentially building a billet drop knuckle that's gonna fit everything. Even all of the brakes that BMW decided to use, which are a ridiculous amount of brakes. I don't know what the German engineers are thinking when they do stuff like this. When you look at a company like Subaru, you have one car, the Impreza, since 2008. It has been the same to present as far as at least the rear suspension goes. They change a little bit in the front, but really not much. That rear suspension is also in every other Subaru that they make. A Forester is an Impreza with a 30 mil riser between the subframe and the body. Everything else is the same. So when we come up with a product for a Subaru, it just happens to fit 19 other vehicles over the last 20 years. It's really awesome. And then as far as like optimizing the design of a chassis, clearly not as important for a regular driven car, because Subaru did it even with the BRZ. They used an Impreza rear subframe and put it in a rear wheel drive BRZ. Something that BMW could never do. BMW optimizes absolutely everything, and they run all of their chassis through, it seems like, their own individual test for optimizing that chassis. And I know this because they'll change nothing but the bushing diameter. So a bushing simply has more compliance or less compliance, probably based on the tire and the weight of the vehicle, and everything else is the same, which is super annoying because we made a bushing replacement kit for the front tension arm of an E80, E90, and then we're thinking, wow, this might work in the F series, the G series. Wrong. Like, the arm looks almost the same, length is similar, bushing not the same. Cars are bigger, cars are smaller, cars are this, cars are that. Well, Subaru doesn't care. They make the same thing for all of them, even though the Forester is bigger, heavier, whatever. Same. This is different, same. Like, I don't know if, like, when it comes to OEM engineering, there's the rigorous testing and the very specified, and I've heard a lot of the guys on my Instagram talk about it, but then there's the opposite where they just change absolutely nothing, and you're gonna get both. Anyways, this is gonna fit all of the BMW stuff, which took a while to figure out. I have 50 different rotors and all sorts of different calipers, and I gotta throw them all in here to see if they're all gonna fit. And essentially, we're gonna print this, we're gonna run a prototype on our car, and we're gonna see how this all works out, because I think there is a need for a billet knuckle for the road race guys. Also for the drift guys, and then utilizing the OEM style press-in bearing, which is like $11, and it's OEM sealed, it'll last forever. So you don't really want to get rid of that if you can continue to use it. So that's why this huge thing is still here. Otherwise we would just put in our own bearing, which could also be an option. Like, we're not ruling anything out. And then having the connection point for all of the arms be essentially the same, so that you could go to this without changing too much, and keeping the costs, other than the knuckle, relatively low. So to get the drop knuckle performance, I mean, it's something that Corvettes have done forever. Drop knuckles is like actually that's the only thing that you do to a Corvette to really get it to perform well. You just correct the roll center, lower the bearing relative to the rest of the suspension. You're simulating the OEM geometry, but at a lower ride height. And it's something that isn't that common with anything else, but it needs to be. And BMWs are more difficult because of how they designed everything. It's just not that easy to package a bearing with how close they are to all the other control arms, where a Corvette is just like the easiest thing ever. The arms are a mile away. You could put the bearing basically anywhere, up or down. That's why drag knuckles, they're designed to fit inside of a 15-inch wheel, easy. Bring this in, bearing, and everything still fits around it. But if you do that with a BMW knuckle, the 5-link, the spacing and everything is so important on the knuckle. And the upper arms were actually already so close to the bearing to begin with. When I bring them down, you got to move them over just a little bit. Now the nut of the bolt is right next to the bearing, or the axle, sorry, and like everything's just super tightly packed already. So definitely not as easy to do, and I understand that's probably why it hasn't been done. But there's more BMWs than there are Corvettes, way more. So there's definitely a market for it. Getting it perfect is what's going to be the challenge, and having it work for everybody. So it's going to be a long game. We're going to work on this for the rest of the year, probably just on and off, and testing and making sure that it's there. And that's really all I need to show you guys. We'll see you next week on another episode of Design Time. And I have had a lot more seminars. I have one every other week, and we might be doing one on suspension in the next month or so. So if that's something that you're interested in, it's going to be specifically looking at suspensions and designs, all in Fusion, but I'll have examples of every type, not every type, but like different types. The Corvette, the 5-link, the trailing, the semi-trailing. Like, I'll just create a simulation of all these, and then we'll just kind of talk about it, including front stuff as well. I'll just be able to pull it up and discuss. So kind of an open forum style. If you're interested in that, definitely take a look for it. Otherwise, thanks for all the support, and we'll see you guys in the next video.